For more of this kind of content you can subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. The knock came at 3:12 a.m. Wesley snapped awake, hand already on the gun under his pillow. He cracked the door. Standing on his porch drenched in freezing rain was a woman. No. Not a woman, not human. Skin the color of pink, slick with rain. Black hair clung to her face, matted and wild. She wore a skin-tight black uniform torn at the ribs and thighs, shaking only from the old Plea. She said, "Let me in there close." "I don't have long." Then she stepped forward slowly, deliberately, and fell to her knees. "I'll do anything," she said, breath hitching. "Just don't let them find me." Wesley's jaw flexed. Everything about her screamed, "Run." "Nothing about this," KN screamed. "Normal." He lowered the gun an inch. "Start with your name." "Celia," she said, eyes burning into his. "I'm not your enemy, but if you don't let me in right now you'll be dead with me in 60 seconds. A hum passed the night. He opened the door inside. Now she didn't hesitate. She moved fast, almost too fast for someone so wounded. He shut the door, locked it, and killed every light in the cabin. Wesley turned to her. Her posture had changed, less desperate now, more alert. Her eyes scanned the room, locking onto every exit, every window. She was trained military or something close. Wesley didn't like being played. "You want to tell me what the hell this is?" he asked, voice low. "They framed me," she said. "They want me dead because I know the truth about what everything." Before he could press her, a high-pitched ping echoed outside like sonar. Celia's eyes widened. "They're here." Wesley didn't need more. He grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward the back room, heart rate spiking, not from fear. Outside, something heavy landed on the roof. Then the silence broke. Wesley looked at Celia. "You fight?" Her mouth curled into something almost like a grin. "Better than you." He tossed her a second pistol. She caught it without looking. Wesley smirked. "We'll see." The wall shattered inward. Two figures in black armor surged in, aiming plasma rifles. Celia moved first. The first intruder dropped before he registered she'd fired. Wesley took the second, moving with brutal precision, slamming the muzzle of his gun under the helmet and pulling the trigger. Blood sprayed. Another drone zipped through the open wall. Small, fast, scanning. Celia snarled, grabbing a knife from Wesley's counter. In one motion she leapt and buried the blade into the drone's optic. Sparks exploded. The drone fell. Wesley stared at her. "You said you were a fugitive," he said. "From what?" Celia's breath was fast. "I was a leader on my planet. Now I'm a target. They killed everyone who stood with me." Wesley looked around his wrecked cabin, then back at Harry. "So now I'm next." Her voice was steel. "Not if you run with me." "Where?" "Lavara, my home, where the fire's just getting started." And in the wreckage of his cabin, Wesley made a decision. He didn't trust her, but he wanted to see what she'd burned down. Wesley stood in the debris, staring at the alien woman who just turned his quiet life into a war zone. Celia holstered the pistol, dark eyes locked on him. "They're not done. That was a scout team. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they send a kill squad." Wesley didn't waste time asking how she knew. He grabbed his duffel from the hallway closet, already packed from old habits he never broke, and yanked open the floor panel near the kitchen. A stash of weapons, not government issued, his own kind of illegal. Celia raised a brow as he tossed a sleek carbine across the room to her. "You always keep this much firepower under your house?" she asked. "I don't like surprises." Wesley said. "You like me though," she said, checking the rifle's charge. He looked her dead in the eyes. "Didn't say that." She smirked. "Butin', not throwing me out." "No," he said, slinging a second rifle over his shoulder, "because I want answers, and maybe, just maybe, I want see how far this goes." Her smile turned sharp. "Then stay close, Wesley, because if you fall behind they will kill you." He didn't flinch. "Let's give them someone worth chasing." They moved through the side woods, across slick grass and mud. Celia kept up with him easily, too easily. She moved like she didn't feel pain, didn't notice the blood drying on her skin. Even wounded, she was a storm wrapped in skin. They reached the ridge below them in the clearing. A sleek black vessel hovered just off the ground, no visible engines. 3 armored figures stepped out, scanning the trees with shoulder-mounted lights. Celia crouched beside Wesley, her breath steady. "Covenant killers," she said. "Hired guns. Paid off by the ruling council of Luera. They don't ask questions, they only erase problems, and you're the biggest one." Wesley muttered. She looked at him. "The only one left." Wesley scoped the enemy. 2 up front, 1 on the wing. "If we wait, they'll sweep the tree line." Celia drew blade again. "No waiting, we take the ship." Wesley gave a short laugh. "Just the 2 of us. I've done more with less," she said. Then she was gone. She sprinted into the clearing like a shot, moving low and fast. The first merc never even turned. Celia slashed his Achilles, spun and drove the blade up under his chin. He dropped Soundlessly the second raised his rifle. Wesley fired the round, punched through his armor and dropped him where he stood. Celia reached the ship first. The vessel hissed open ramp, lowering third ones. Gone, Wesley said, breathing hard. Must have circled. Celia's eyes narrowed then. Hune, watching we move now. They stormed up the ramp. Inside the ship was pure efficiency, military grade, but stolen. Celia dropped into the pilot's seat. Fingers dancing across alien interfaces, the engine thrummed to life. You know how to fly this thing? Wesley asked, gripping the seat beside her. I designed half of Lara's navy, she said. Flying a merc ship is like riding a drunk horse. The ship surged upward behind them in the tree line. The third merc fired a tracker dart. Too late, it bounced harmlessly off the hull as the vessel rocketed into the sky. They broke atmosphere fast, and then the ship shook. Wesley grabbed the wall. That normal, they hit us. Rear stabilizers toast. We won't make orbit unless I row power. The console sparked. Smoke filled the cabin. Wesley moved. You fly. I'll patch the system. She didn't argue. He dropped into the access bay, tore off a panel, and stared into a nest of wires he couldn't even name. He started cutting, splicing, jamming connections that looked right. The ship rattled again. Now would be good, Celia shouted. Done, Wesley yelled, jamming the last wire in place. The ship jerked, straightened, and then they were gone. Wesley climbed back to the cockpit, sweat on his brow. Celia didn't turn to look at him, just said, you saved our lives. He sat beside her, breathing hard. You'll forgive me if I ask again, who the hell are you? She leaned back, finally letting herself relax a little. I'm Celia Wren of Luera, former commander of the People's Fleet, designated traitor, hunted by my own council because I said one word they feared more than death. Wesley looked at her. What word? She turned to him. Freedom. You didn't have to help me. You could have slammed the door in my face. I thought about it, Wesley said. She leaned closer. Why didn't you? He didn't blink. Because you begged. She stared at him, then her voice barely above a whisper. And if I beg again? Wesley's jaw flexed. I don't take orders from fugitives. She smiled. We'll see. Celia sat still, hands steady on the controls. She hadn't said a word in minutes, not since she leaned in, not since she asked if he'd let her beg again. Wesley hadn't answered now. The cabin was lit only by soft emergency lights, casting a cold blue glow across her pink skin and the dried streaks of blood on her uniform. She looked like a ghost. How long until we reach Luera? He asked. Celia's voice was flat. 14 hours, assuming nothing kills us first. He looked down at her. You mean if the ship doesn't fall apart mid-jump? No, she said, not looking up. I mean me. That got his attention. You think I'll kill you? He asked. Her head turned slowly. I think you're a man with a gun, a grudge, and a history you don't talk about, and I just dropped a galaxy's worth of problems into your lap. He stepped toward her, one slow stride. If I was going to shoot you, I'd have done it when you bled all over my kitchen floor. Then why haven't you asked what the plan is? What happens if we actually get to Lavara? I figured you'd tell me, he said. When you sto pretending you're still in control? Celia stood from the pilot's chair. You think I'm pretending? She said, stepping into his space. Wesley didn't flinch. I think you're bleeding through a patch job, riding a stolen ship and flying blind toward a planet that wants your head on a spike. Yeah, I think you're hanging on by a thread. Her breath hitched. She stared into his eyes like she was waiting for permission to hit him or kiss him. Instead she exhaled and stepped back. You're not wrong, she admitted, but you're here now, which means you don't get to sit on the sidelines and throw punches. You're in this. He nodded once. So tell me the plan. Celia pulled a hollow map from the console. A spinning projection of Luera blinked to life. Between them, green continents, deep oceans, scattered cities glowing with artificial light. This is Central Command, she said, pointing to a northern district. It's where the Chancellor runs the show. It's also where they're going to kill me the moment I land. Wesley studied the map. So we don't land there exactly. We drop in the outer zone, Turk. It's half underground, full of factory smugglers and people who still remember my name. We regroup. I call in what's left of the old resistance. And then she paused. And then we burn the regime to the ground. Wesley's eyes narrowed. You really think they'll rise up for you if I can prove the council lied? She said, if I show them what they did, what they are, Elvira will rise. And if they don't? He asked. Then we die fighting, she said simply. Silence settled between them again. Celia's eyes flew to the console. We've got a leak in the coolant system. COR is overheating, Wesley swore and moved, popping open the access hatch behind the NAV board. Can you fix it? She asked. He slid into the crawl space without answering. Inside it was boiling steam. Hissed. Metal creaked. The pipe had split along its seam. He yanked his shirt off, wrapped it around the edge of the conduit to stop the worst of the burn. And reached in the second he touched the damaged line it blew a white-hot jet of gas slammed into his forearm. He grunted in pain but didn't let go. Celia called out, "Wesley, hold the course," he growled. Almost he ripped a wire from the wall and jury-rigged a seal with the fabric. The leak slowed the core, quieted Wesley. Crawled out. Celia caught him as he stumbled. "Stupid," she said, voice tight. "You could have." "I didn't," he said, pulling away. "System stable." "You're welcome." She looked down at his arm. "That's third degree." He raised an eyebrow. "That your medical opinion?" She grabbed a med pack, cracked it open and pulled out a syringe. "Hold still. You enjoy bossing people around," he muttered. She didn't answer, just pressed the injector into his skin and released the burn gel. Relief hit instantly. Celia's hands lingered on his skin a moment too long. "You didn't hesitate," she said, eyes fixed on the blistered flesh. "No time to." She looked up at him. "You don't ask questions, you just move. You're dangerous. You showed up on my doorstep half dead, dragged me into a galactic conspiracy, and now you're flying me to a planet full of people who want you dead. You're not wrong about who's dangerous." Their faces were inches apart. The ship's hum faded beneath the sound of their breathing. Celia leaned closer, voice low. "You're the only one I trust. That should scare both of us." Wesley's voice was gravel. "You don't get to trust me yet, I know, but you will," he said. She shivered, then she pulled back. "Get some rest. We'll need to be sharp when we land." Wesley didn't move. "You ever sleep?" "Not when I'm HED," she said, heading toward the back quarters. He watched her go. Every step of hers was still confident, but he'd seen the cracks now. He leaned back in the chair, his burned arm throbbing less now, and stared out at the stars streaking by. 14 hours before they landed in a war zone, and not one minute of sleep. They dropped out of hyperspace like a stone through glass. No fanfare, no welcome, just alarms and static and a warning light screaming red across the console. Celia swore in her native tongue, a clipped sharp curse that didn't need translating, and gripped the controls tighter. Wesley leaned forward in his seat, eyes locked on the viewport. "That looked like home to you." Lara hung ahead of them, massive and green and broken. Its atmosphere shimmered with orbital satellites and weather patterns. It was what floated above it, a cruiser. Not massive but not small, waiting like a knife in the dark. "They knew we were coming," Wesley said. Celia's finger flew across the interface. "They knew I'd never stop running the councils. Paranoid, not stupid." She dove the ship low, skimming the planet's upper atmosphere. The cruiser's sensors pinged once, twice, and then an automated voice crackled to life in Luan dialect. Wesley didn't speak the language, but he didn't need to. "They're locking weapons," Celia snapped. "We have 60 seconds before they turned the ship into vapor." "You said you designed the fleet," Wesley said. "Did you give it an off switch?" "I gave it a blind spot." She jerked. The controls left. The ship lurched hard, dropping into a steep dive that flattened Wesley against his seat bottom of the cruiser. She gritted. "They saved power by shielding everywhere but the dorsal seam. If I can scrape under a blast rocked the hull too close." "Celia, I see it. One more hit and they'd spiral out of control." But she didn't flinch. Her hands danced across the manual override, rerouting power from weapons to shields to engines to another hit. The ship screamed. Metal buckled. They broke atmosphere hard. The cruiser peeled away behind them too high to follow. Celia exhaled. "We're in." Wesley coughed, once blood in his mouth. "What's left of us anyway?" The ship was rattling apart around them. Lights flickered. A chunk of hull plating peeled away from the left flank and half the NAV system was fried, but they were alive and falling fast. Celia pulled them down toward the horizon, toward the dim red glow of the outer district Turk. From above it looked like a scar on the planet's skin, industrial and ugly, half buried under terrain lit by crude lights and pulsing towers, the kind of place where laws didn't matter and death came cheap. "Strap in," she said, "we're coming in hot." Wesley didn't bother with the seat belt. He braced both feet on the floor and held the crash bar like his life depended on it. The ship slammed into the edge of the landing field with a screech of torn metal and buckled plating. Sparks burst from the nose. A wing tore loose, and when they finally stopped, the entire ship groaned like it might collapse in on itself. Wesley unclenched his fists. "You call that landing? I call it survival." Celia muttered, kicking the emergency latch. The ramp hissed open. Smoke rolled out and Elle's air hit them like a slap. They stepped onto the soil, both breathing hard. Celia winced, favoring her left leg. The crash had reopened a gash on her thigh, soaking her torn uniform with blood again. Wesley caught her arm before she could hide the limp. "You're bleeding." She tried to pull away. "I've bled worse." "I don't doubt that," he said, tightening his grip. "Doesn't mean you should fall apart now." Their eyes locked. Then Celia nodded. He helped her down the ramp. They crossed the empty lot quickly. Distant machinery echoed through the streets. The district wasn't asleep, just waiting. Celia led him through back alleys and broken fences past buildings that looked more like carcasses than homes, and then they were inside a narrow building, dark, silent. A contact waited in the shadows. Pink skin, humanoid male, thin but coiled like a spring. He stared at Celia with wide hollow eyes. Commander, he said, voice hushed. No ranks anymore. She replied, just survival. Is the broadcast system still intact? He hesitated, then nodded. Buried under the comm tower, still old tech, off grid. WEC need it soon, she said. Are the others still alive? Some. That was enough. Celia turned to Wesley. We go now, you sure? He asked. She nodded. The longer we wait, the more time they have to spend their lives. The people won't believe me until they see me live unfiltered. Then let's make it loud. They moved fast. Underground, a maze of tunnels beneath the district. Half-forgotten water dripped from fractured pipes. Wesley stayed close to her as they descended into the depths of Lara's underbelly. At the end of a narrow corridor, a massive steel door stood half open. Inside the old broadcast chamber, Celia sat at the console, flicked on the system. Power surged. A low hum filled the air as cameras activated. Lights blinked. Satellites locked on. Wesley stood at her side, rifle in hand. Celia spoke to the people of Luera. This is Celia Rain. You were told I was dead, that I betrayed you, that I sold your future for power. She paused. I didn't, but I was betrayed by the council, by the chancellor. They burned the truth. They killed everyone who stood with me. Her voice hardened. But I'm not gone, and I'm not done. She leaned closer, eyes cold fire. I'm coming home, and I'm not coming alone. The screen went black. 10 seconds later, the tower exploded, not from malfunction, from the ambush. A blast knocked Wesley off his feet and sent Celia sprawling. Alarms wailed. She dragged herself up, coughing. Blood smeared across her cheek. They tracked the signal move. Wesley barked, pulling her up. The building shook. Gunfire cracked outside. They burst through the back tunnel just as soldiers poured into the chamber. Wesley fired behind them. They ran. Celia clutched her side, staggering. Wesley caught her, lifted her through smoke and rubble, through the rising chaos of Turk behind them. Luera began to wake. Screens and windows showed her face, and the people, those broken, starving survivors, began to whisper her name. Celia, Celia, Celia. She wasn't a ghost anymore. She was a fuse, and the whole damn planet was about to burn. The city was awake. No, Turk was alive, breathing smoke and tension through its alleys like it had waited years for this moment. Screens flickered with static. Then Celia's face, her message replayed on loops from bootleg terminals, bar TVs, even hacked surveillance drones. Half the population didn't believe it at first. The other half just didn't care. But when the government scrambled to shut it down, when they jammed signals and sent soldiers into the streets to arrest anyone caught watching, it changed, and within an hour of the broadcast, Lara's lowest district was teetering on full-blown revolt. Wesley kicked open the back door of a butcher department building and dragged Celia inside. The wound in her side had gone from bad to worse. She coughed once. Blood, this is nothing, she rasped, trying to push off the wall. Wesley caught her before she fell. It's a gut shot. That's not nothing. I've had worse. When he snapped, she tried to smirk but didn't have the strength. When I had 2 lungs working. He set her on the floor, gently grabbed his pack and yanked out what little medical gear he had left. No proper tools, just field dressings, adhesive mesh and a vial of painkiller. He looked at her. This is going to hurt. I said I've had worse. Yeah. Wesley ripped her suit open at the side. This is going to top it. He poured antiseptic over it, slapped gauze on and pressed hard. She flinched. He didn't stop. She didn't scream when it was wrapped, sealed and clamped. She lay back, breathing hard, sweat soaking her collar. You should have left me in that wreck, she muttered. I should have, he agreed, but I didn't. Her eyes met his. You know what you are, she asked. Wesley leaned and go ahead, enlighten me. She raised a shaking hand and pointed a finger to his chest. A problem I didn't ask for, but the one I needed. Before he could respond, a rumble shook the floor. Distant gunfire. Wesley grabbed his rifle. They're sweeping again. Celia tried to rise. Wesley stopped her with a hand on her shoulder. Don't, you're not moving like this. I'm not hiding while they take the streets, she snapped. You're not leading them with a hole in your side either. She stared at him, frustrated and furious. Then against every instinct she had, she nodded. The city burned. The people of Turk were starving, exhausted. When Celia's broadcast hit, it wasn't just her voice they heard, it was hope. The first wave of soldiers sent into the sector didn't make it out. By the second wave, Celia's name was spray painted across buildings, her face drawn in chalk on the streets. She's alive, she's back, she's going to take the palace. Night fell hard. Wesley watched it all from the apartment rooftop. He had eyes on every corner of the block, tracking movement. The resistance was forming fast, messy and raw, and it needed time. Inside, Celia slept but only barely, fevered, talking in her sleep in a language he didn't understand. He checked her twice an hour, changing her bandages, forced water into her mouth, kept her pulse stable. He didn't know why he cared this much, maybe because he'd seen her take a planet's worth of weight and still walk straight. By morning they came for her, not government, not enemies, locals, fighters, former rebels, gang leaders turned believers, rough, tired, armed with scavenged weapons and cracked armor. We heard the broadcast, she said, standing in the doorway, voice glitching through the modulator. We saw the face, we saw her bleed. It's real. Wesley nodded toward the backroom. Check, alive, barely. The woman stepped forward. Then we fight now while the city's boiling before they lock it down. Wesley glanced out the window. Smoke curled from rooftops. A siren wailed, we'll need gear, routes, diversions. We've got fire, the woman said. We just need a spark. It happened at dusk. Wesley helped Celia onto her feet, her arm across his shoulders. Wesley was a machine. She was pale, weak, but alive, dressed now in scavenged combat gear, armored but light. Her left arm hung heavy, but her eyes burned. They walked together out into the street. 100 people stood waiting, old rebels, teenagers with bandaged fists, women with rifles slung over their backs and scars on their faces. Nobody spoke. Celia stepped forward and they knelt, every single one. Wesley watched it happen in silence. No grand speech, just one wounded woman standing in the center of the storm she'd created. And a city choosing her anyway. Then across the skyline, flares. The government had found them. A transport hovered overhead, shining spotlights down. Celia lifted her pistol, aimed it at the light, and fired once. Then hell broke loose. Soldiers dropped on zip lines. People scattered, then regrouped, and the battle for TK began. He moved through the chaos like he trained for this war his entire life. Cover fire, advance, protect, kill, repeat. He stayed close to Celia, never more than a few meters from her. She wasn't fragile, but she was still healing, and too important to lose. At one point a government commander lunged from behind a wrecked vehicle, blade out, aiming for her throat. Wesley caught the strike, redirected it, and drove his boot into the attacker's knee. The soldier dropped, and Celia didn't hesitate. She grabbed the downed man's rifle and turned it on him. One shot. She looked down at the corpse, then into the live security camera mounted on a drone overhead. This is what truth looks like, she said, cold and fierce. No more lies, no more silence. Luera belongs to its people. The broadcast went live across the planet. Her face lit up screens again, this time with blood on her hands and fury in her voice. By nightfall the soldiers were gone. The people of Tur held the streets, and the world was watching. Wesley sat on the rooftop again, watching the stars while Celia stood beside him. Her wound was still bleeding, but she was upright. You could have walked away, she said, staring out across the burning skyline. I still could, but you won't. He looked at her. No. She leaned in close. You saved me again today, she said. I'll start charging you. Her voice dropped to a whisper. How will I pay you? Wesley turned to her, jaw tight. You don't get to surrender that easy, he said, and with the city burning beneath them, the war only just beginning, and her face already sparking riots across Luera, Celia whispered, then I'll earn it. 3 days passed. 3 districts fell. 1 surrendered without a shot. The council's propaganda grid fractured under the weight of Celia's message. Broadcast streamed through hijacked channels, replaying her face, her voice, her defiance. Every time they tried to shut her down, she came back louder, but with every victory came risk, and someone was listening too closely. Wesley woke before dawn. Combat never left the bloodstream once it settled, and he sat at the edge of the makeshift bed, watching the faint light filter through the metal slats of the hideout's walls behind him. Celia stirred. She didn't sleep deeply. Couldn't. The weight of a revolution doesn't let you rest for long trouble, she murmured, eyes still closed. Always, he replied, but not yet. She smiled into her pillow. Give it time. He stood, pulled his vest on, and checked the weapons cache. 1 mag left for the carbine, 2 sidearm MS, a compact blade. Not enough, not for what was coming. By mid-morning the air in T was thick with tension. Smoke from the outer sectors, a strange quiet, like the whole district was holding its breath. Celia gathered with her commanders in a concrete shell of an old manufacturing hall. Wesley stood beside her, arms crossed across the makeshift war table. Stood Kale, one of the last surviving members of her old council, former fleet strategist. I've secured the access codes to the inner city gates. Kale said we can breach the perimeter and push to the palace within 2 days. Celia narrowed her eyes. How did you get those codes? Kale smiled faintly. Not all loyalty can be bought, some just need reminding. Wesley didn't like him something off. He leaned towards Celia. How long has he been back? Since yesterday, she said under her breath. He just walked back into your command like nothing happened. He saved my life once years ago. Wesley's voice dropped. So did I. Doesn't mean you should trust me. Her gaze didn't waver. I don't. Then she turned to Kale. We move at midnight. Kale nodded. Understood. Midnight. They moved 2 transports, no lights under radar. Celia, Wesley, Kale and 6 soldiers loyal to the cause. The capital loomed on the horizon, tall spires lit like monuments, guards patrolling the walls, drones overhead. Wesley watched Kale the entire ride, every glance, every movement. He didn't trust perfect people, never had. They landed in Sector 9, a water treatment facility long abandoned, its tunnels connecting directly to the Palace District. It was a known access point from the old days, back when Celia still wore command stripes and gave orders over broadcast towers instead of rooftops. But something was wrong. Too clean, too quiet. They moved through the tunnels in formation, Celia up front, Wesley on rear, Kale in the middle. The others moved like ghosts, silent rifles up, adrenaline humming through every step. Halfway down the 3rd corridor, Wesley felt it. Then he saw it embedded in the wall just above the archway they'd passed through. A pin-sized lens, active trap. Wesley hissed. The tunnel exploded. Ceiling collapsed. The blast threw Wesley backwards, slammed him against the wall. His ears rang. Dust blinded him. He pushed up. Celia was gone. They came in hard, 8 armored enforcers, rifles up, barking orders in the Chancellor's dialect. Wesley ducked behind the wreckage, counted seconds, then moved. He shot the first 2 before they saw him, snapped the third's neck with his boot on the wall and a knife to the throat. But there were too many. They kept coming. That's when he knew they weren't here for him, they were here for her. Cal was nowhere gone. Wesley fought through 5 more before he was forced to retreat. His ribs screamed from the earlier crash. He crawled back into the upper access tunnels, blood on his jaw, fury in his chest. He called in every contact. They had no one answered until the screens lit up. Celia in chains broadcast across Luera, her face bloodied, split lip, her hands shackled in front of her. She stood straight, but her eyes were pure fire. A voice spoke over the image, the Chancellor's voice, calm. Deceitful people of Luera, your traitor has been captured. She brought death to your cities, lies to your children, violence to your streets. Now she will answer for her crimes. The camera zoomed in on her face, and she smiled. Wesley watched from a hidden booth in a civilian tech shop, fists clenched. She wasn't broken, she was baiting them, and she knew he was watching. Inside the palace, Celia sat in a white cell. A council magistrate entered. You'll speak at the public trial, he said. You'll confess, and you'll be executed. Celia leaned back, smiled with bloody teeth. Or you'll make me a martyr. Either way I win. The magistrate's expression soured, arrogant until the end. She laughed. No, just smarter than you. He left. There was a camera in the ceiling. She looked up at it, eyes wild, smile sharp. Wesley, she whispered, come get me. He was already moving. He had a plan, a dangerous one she'd hate. Wesley didn't run. He walked through back alleys and black markets, past shattered buildings and whispering crowds. Every step was calculated. He didn't panic, he planned. Because the moment Celia looked into that prison camera and said his name, something inside snapped into place. This wasn't survival anymore. He found what he needed beneath a pile of wreckage, an old government patrol bot, half dead, still carrying an encrypted transmission key. He gutted it fast, rewired the core and stole its comm relay. Then he moved to the water plant, hijacked the turbine systems to overload the power grid in the inner palace sector, enough to blind their surveillance every 22 seconds. He didn't sleep, didn't eat, didn't stop. Step 1. Break the palace security net. Step 2. Hit them where they their weakest. Step 3. Get Celia out alive. The rebels didn't hesitate when he told them. A group of 15 met him at an old transport depot, some from the first riots, others from distant districts that had heard the broadcast and crossed miles on foot to fight. You're going into the palace? One of them asked. Wesley checked his weapon. Through it he handed out gear, covert explosives, thermal knives, smoke discs. No one said a word. They didn't need a speech. He wasn't Celia. Meanwhile, in the palace, Celia was being paraded like a trophy. The council dressed her wounds just enough to make her presentable. Her hands remained bound, her ankles too. Her bruises weren't hidden. They wanted her to look defeated. It was a show. Her trial would be broadcast live to all districts at dusk, but her eyes never wavered, and even though they tried to silence her, she still whispered to herself every time they passed the camera, "He's coming." Wesley hit them at 17:09 local time. The sky was a deep red. The first flare launched from a construction tower near the east wall, drawing the palace guards toward a false